Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Many of us have considered a coach to help move our lives forward. Sometimes we're not really sure. Is that like therapy? What is the difference between the two? Well, think about it this way. Professional athletes have coaches, many of them, to move their life forward. If you're going through in your life some challenges, doesn't matter what it is, you feel stuck, you're dealing with some loss, maybe some grief, maybe you have some challenges with your family, relationships, career, time to consider a coach. I found a great one for you. And we're going to learn a lot about what she does, how she got to do what she's been doing, by the way, which is decades in the making. Fern Smenyak joins us here on the program. Welcome. How you doing, Fern?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
Terrific. It's Friday. It's good.
It's Friday. TGIF, right?
For sure. For sure. By the way, we're doing a Zoom, depending on where you're receiving this. It could be an audio podcast, but love your background with the ocean and the beach.
Yeah, it's a good place to be, always, right?
I'm gonna be there this weekend.
Oh,
Definitely.
that's
Oh yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah. It's my Zen spot, and it's like I have to be intentional. I am going. That's what I'm doing.
That's
Um,
exactly what you do.
yeah. So for you, in terms of coaching, what are you hearing mostly from people nowadays? Is it a lot of anxiety? Or do they tell you that they just don't feel like life is moving forward for them?
Well, honestly, I have to tell you, everybody needs a coach today. There's just so much
Yeah.
going on in the world. After COVID, I think it just changed everything. And people are just looking for someone to listen, to help them guide them through everything. And there's so many, I have a vast majority of clients in every aspect you could imagine. So
Yeah.
it's just so important today to know that they have somebody out there that can not just listen to them, but also help them.
Do you feel, Fern, that many people are just afraid to ask for help? They feel like it's almost like they're giving up their power, they're weak by doing that?
I do. I think that people do have reservations, but they have to understand that there are people out there that can help them. And the nice thing about coaching is that the coaches don't really look back. We look forward. So what we try to do is take today and we move forward with them. We really don't care about the past because we can't change it, right? The past is the past. So
Hmm.
it's important for people to realize we have to go forward. And as long as you are moving forward, you're doing good.
I'm glad you said that because to me, that is essentially the difference between therapy and coaching. Anytime I've ever been with a therapist, and there's a place for all of it for sure, but it was always going back. We'd always reset every meeting. And it was like, well, so how you doing based on a
Yeah,
situation where I didn't feel it was a lot of forward momentum. Where coaching, it is moving forward. There is accountability. In therapy, you're kind of just spilling it and talking about it. In coaching, there's accountability. You set the goals. This is just my perception and talking and
you're
working with
absolutely
coaches.
right.
Hmm. All right.
And it's interesting because a lot of my clients have had therapists, and that's exactly what they say. Therapists just keep going back, and it kind of brings them down. They want help. They want to move forward. They want to get over whatever struggles they have. And honestly, the first session that I have with my clients, I do go back and I want to know what they're all about, where they
Sure.
came from. I like to know so they feel comfortable that I know them. And then I tell them a little bit about myself. So there's kind of that relationship that we build in that first session. But after that, I don't go back. We deal with today and tomorrow and short-term goals. I don't like to look too far ahead because you want them to be goals that they, can see
Sure.
and they can get to. So the short-term goals are important.
And certainly there is a place for the past because a lot of times that got you here, or at least that's the pieces of the puzzle that may be missing and then impactful for you. But that's you unpack that in the beginning
Yep.
and then
And
you
then
move it forward. Yeah. What's up with COVID? Yeah, it's long gone, but it made such a ripple in our lives and caused anxiety, stress. People were stuck because of it, still are. What's your theory on that? I still haven't figured that out.
I think it was mostly isolation that caused a lot of problems. You
Mm,
know, people were stuck at home. They weren't really communicating. They weren't getting together. They weren't socializing. And that's what I think has really impacted the world is the socialization part of it, especially with children. You know, the kids, especially the younger ones who may be going into kindergarten or first grade, and they're online doing, school. It just wasn't a good thing for the kids. And even the adults, what happened was basically people were going remote. And remote has a whole different feel than being there and talking to someone. You know, there was texting going on, email going on. And I truly believe that that's lack of actual the interaction of meeting with people and being with people really took us back a little bit.
hmm. And definitely and I know that you also work with teens and children. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Talk about a
Yep.
step back in terms of socialization, because after COVID, and this was a few months ago, and I have to believe it still holds true, that the number one demographic dealing with challenges, social challenges, anxiety, all of that are teenage girls.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. The teenagers have it really rough. And I also find that we don't talk anymore. I'll tell you a funny story. I had gone away one weekend and I was in a lobby of a hotel and I'm sitting surrounded by all hockey players, boys. And my three boys all played hockey. So I was used to this whole camaraderie of all the kids together with all their hockey stuff. And I noticed that none of them were talking. And I'm looking around and there's no conversation going on. They're all on their phone. So there was a kid sitting next to me and they were teens. They were probably about 15. So I turned to the kid next to me and I said, how come, you guys aren't talking? And he goes, oh, we are. He goes, but we're on our cell phones. We're group chatting. And I just found that absolutely amazing that you had a group of kids sitting there. And instead of talking like you and I are talking, they were texting. And to me, I just think
Mm.
something's wrong. This is wrong in so many levels.
Wait till you hear this. And this is a story that came out today. Wall Street Journal: phone meetings are back at work because of Zoom fatigue. Young people are having struggles with it because they don't know how to act and how to make calls, and they're nervous to make the calls. So much, in fact, that a lot of companies are hiring phone call consultants. Wall Street Journal, I'm not making this up. And at the tune of $3,000 a day to coach them how to make phone calls because they don't know how to do it.
I believe it 100%.
It's the truth.
It's I
Yeah.
speak the truth. I mean, I live it. So I
Yes.
saw it, I live it, I know it. It's true. And
Mm.
it's scary. It's scary.
It is, because we are social creatures, and now you take that away. And what does it create? What
Yeah.
if you don't connect with people? There's anxiety, there's stress, there's just, strange feelings. You feel disconnected. You don't feel whole because you're not communicating. Big thing. In terms of who you work with, teenagers and young adults versus adults. What's the percentage? Is it more on the younger side, older, what?
It's probably, I would say, 40% with the young adults and
Okay,
60% with the adults.
gotcha.
I have, a nice mix. And I love both, honestly.
Sure.
And I also do couples too. So I've got couples in there as well.
Wow.
So
I want to
yeah,
get to that in a sec. Your
sure.
journey, Fern, what got you here to coaching people?
So it's interesting. And I was an HR director for over 20 years. And during, that job, you're coaching every day. And you always have, your employees coming in, dealing with issues and concerns. And most of the time, it kind of went into their personal life. So I ended up doing a lot of that, coaching them through whatever issues they had, not just at work, but also at home.
Mm.
12 years ago, I lost my son, my middle son. I have three boys, and I unexpectedly lost him.
All right.
And I started going to a support group. And while I was at that support group, I found myself being able to communicate pretty well with the people that were there, understanding what they were going through. And I kept going and kept going. And after a couple of years, the facilitators that were doing the support group, they would turn to me and they would look to me for advice because the facilitators hadn't lost a child. So they truly didn't understand or know exactly maybe what the question was or could relate to it.
Mm.
So I became very good at doing that and continued to do that. And one of the facilitators came up to me and she said, you're such a great speaker. You really know how to deal with the people and really help them. She said, you should think about doing something like that. And so I went home and, I'm laying in bed that night where I do my best thinking, most of us do. And I thought, you know what? I've been coaching since I was 17 years old. I started coaching sports at 17. I coached softball, basketball, ran programs here in town for 25 years. So I've always been coaching. So why not become a certified coach? And so that's exactly what happened. I became a certified coach, and then I got my master's in certification.
Wow.
I also have certification in grief, so I can do grief counseling as well. And that's kind of like where I ended up. So stopped my HRing and went into coaching full time. And
Amazing.
probably was the best thing I ever did. I love it. I love helping people. And I think I've been doing that since I was 17, coaching, helping. And it truly makes me feel good when I can help people.
Amazing story. Like you found your purpose. I want to talk about grief. There
Yeah,
aren't a lot of coaches out there, even therapists, that have a certification or even have some specialty in that. And when we say grief, many times people think loss of a loved one. Of course, that's probably the ultimate grief. But it could be loss of a relationship, could be loss of a job. We grieve these things, but we don't know how to do it. Um,
right.
what do you think is the first step in getting through something?
Acceptance. The most important thing I think that people don't realize is that when you're going through grief, you need to talk about it and you need to find someone who's going to listen and not judge you and truly care about what you're saying. And I think that grief in anything, if you don't talk about it and if you don't accept it and move on, it could last forever. And there's no time frame with grief. People always ask me, well, like when is this going to go away? It kind of never goes away. You always live with it, but you kind of learn how to live with it. And
Mm,
that's what I do is help people to accept it and learn how to live through it and to be able to, you never really move on because it always stays with you,
mm,
but it's important that you speak about it. A lot of people don't, and that's not a healthy thing for you because it does start to affect you, not just emotionally, but physically.
mhm.
So finding the right person that's going to be able to understand you and be empathetic and perhaps listen to the same story over and over, not necessarily a friend, not necessarily a family member, somebody who's safe and you can say what you want to say and not be judged. That's truly what a grief coach does.
I have connections, friends, people I'm close with that deal with grief. And the one thing that comes back for me in trying to help them is self-reliance in terms of getting through a challenging moment. So let's say you lost somebody close,
Mhm.
spouse, child, whatever it might be,
Mhm.
and years could have gone by, but now you have to do something today that could bring back a memory. So you have the anticipation of, well, how am I going to deal with that? How am I going to handle that? Like you just want home base, something
Yeah.
that you can reach out and hold on to. And more times than not, as time goes on, you're going to be okay with it, but you don't know how you're going to react. And let's be honest, we don't want to go back there again. It's painful.
Yeah. It is. And what you're referring to is what I refer to as a grief blast, where it just comes out of nowhere. It could be a song, it could be you see someone that may look like that person, or somebody says something to you, and all of a sudden you go right back there and you go back to that place. But that's okay. And people have to understand that is going to happen. Those blasts are going to come always. And you kind of have to go through it and accept it and be able to move on. And those are healthy, because if you didn't grieve, that meant you didn't care. And
Mm.
in order to you love, and that's okay. It is. It's very healthy to have that, because if you didn't have those blasts, then truly you didn't care. You didn't love that person.
And you don't know when they're going to show up. You have that where you don't, song comes on the radio.
Yep. Yep.
That, and then you have this where you have to attend an event or you have to go back to a place where you spend time with the loved one,
yep.
just because you have to. Maybe, somebody's graduating, whatever it might be. So you have the anticipation of that. So now the anxiety builds up and then the
Absolutely.
panic and all of that, I might have to excuse myself. I don't want to cry in front of people. All of that.
Oh, yeah.
You need a coach for
Yeah,
that.
you do need
Like,
a coach. And I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls. I tell my clients, I'm here 24/7 for you. And I truly mean that, because I do get texts 11 o'clock at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. And unless I'm with a client, I will respond to them. They know that I'm going to be there 24/7 for them. And sometimes they'll just need to talk to me or text me, and I'll be able to just respond in a way that they'll be like, okay, I'm good. Or they'll say, can you talk to me? Absolutely. And it's important that they know that I care about them, that somebody truly is looking out for their best interests. And that's who I am, because I do. Every one of my clients, I have a spot in my heart for. And my responsibility as their coach is to help them get through that, get through whatever it is I'm helping them with. And I'm walking alongside them, not
mm,
behind them, not in front of them.
yeah,
I'm right next to them. And that's important that they know that.
I'm going to, I was in this situation with somebody this week. That's why this is so fresh in my mind.
Sure.
And if I had your number, even though I do the best I can, and I helped her, I'm thankful I was able to help, grateful I was able to help her. Um, I was just given your number. Like if she was working with you, it would be, Fern, I got this coming up. I don't know how
Yeah.
to handle it. I'm I'm having anxiety. I'm having all of this, and the value of you being there, huge, huge.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that my clients, within the second session, there's a comfort level, and I can see it when I speak to them. The first session, they're nervous, they don't know what to expect. And I tell them right up front, you can tell me anything. I'm like in the closet with you. Nobody hears us, nobody knows,
Sure.
I'm not gonna go and tell anybody. So it's a safe haven. And once they realize that it's a safe haven, and then they also realize that I don't judge, and sometimes they might not tell me something because they feel I will judge them. But then once I get it out of them and they get it off and they say it,
Mm,
and I'm like, okay. I'm like, and they're like, you're all right with that? And I'm like, I'm fine with that. I'm like, I don't judge you. I help you. That's what I'm here for.
yeah.
No judgment. So tell me, I'd rather you tell me and be honest than to hold back And I find out later that you didn't tell me something that could be really important for me to help you. So once I see that comfort level in them and they're like, they enjoy talking to me. You can, when we have our session, it's almost like a familiar face, an old friend that you can just go right into and say how you're feeling, and I just help them get through that. And
Mm,
that's what makes me that when I see that comfort level, they're so relaxed. It just makes me feel so good because
mm.
I know now that they trust me and they're gonna listen.
Final thought here today on grief. I'll bet you there's a lot of people walking around that have buried grief and haven't dealt with it. And I'm going to be honest, I'm always transparent. My dad passed when I was 21, suddenly.
Mhm.
I don't remember a lot. I truly believe I just packed it. I call it the emotional backpack. I threw it back there and I just leave it back there. Um, I'm sure I didn't properly grieve it. And I would probably be better for it if I confronted it. Um, and I'm sure a lot of people have that going on.
They do. And, one of the things that I like to speak to people that, have held back and haven't really expressed it, when they get the opportunity to do that, it is such a relief for them. And I have them go through all different situations. I want them to talk about the one that they lost,
Mm,
because it's important to hear them and to listen to them and to ask questions and care enough that you're asking those questions. And once they start speaking about their loved one that they lost, there is such a relief that comes over them.
mm,
And in time, they accept it. And then they can speak about it and not get upset, because initially they do. There's a lot of crying going on, there's a lot of tears, a lot of frustration. People, when they lose someone, they always have guilt, they have some anger, and they need to get through that. They need to talk about it in order to
absolutely.
move on. And
Yeah.
that's the key right there. And even the worst things that they go through, you always say to them, you would never give that up. In other words, if I said to you, I'm going to take away all that hurt, but in order to do that, I have to erase all your memories. What would you rather have, the memories or the hurt? And people say the memories. They don't want to give those memories up. And that's important. But you have to work through the hurt and you have to work through the guilt. And that's something that I do. And
Wow.
people, it's impactful. It's a wonderful thing.
I would even imagine some people, and it all depends on the situation, but even if they didn't have a great relationship with somebody and they passed, and they're still dealing with stuff like
That's the
guilt and
guilt.
all that,
That's the guilt.
and all that. But even if it wasn't the best relationship, they probably, if you search down deep, you probably would say, I don't want to erase the memories, be good or bad, because
Right?
many times the negative situations turn into positive and pilot your life forward when you figure these things out. Another reason for a coach, but
Yep.
you wouldn't want to get rid of it because
Yeah.
it's a part of you. It's almost like the Matrix, taking a pill or whatever, and you just forget something.
Yep. Yep.
Why would you want to do that? I don't think I would ever in my
No.
journey. There might have been times if 3 years ago you asked me that question, I'd be like, you know what? Maybe there would be, but no, no, good or bad. Don't want to erase
And
them.
and the truth is, with every person that I've asked, I've never had any person say, "Oh, take away the grief and the sorrow,"
And there you go.
because now you don't have those memories.
Right.
And it's an interesting, I think people are very like, wow, like it makes them think,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You're right. I guess it's okay to have those feelings of hurt and sorrow, because with it comes all those memories. And
Right.
that's kind of where I kind of go with people. Don't focus on your sorrow and all that. Let's focus on the good memories and the things that you learned And, because lessons learned are so important. We all make mistakes in life, right? Nobody's perfect. But if we can learn from those mistakes and turn it around and make
Sure.
something good of it, that's
Yeah.
the best thing you could do.
We are out of time. I wanted to talk about marriage, relationships, career. That's like you offer so much and so much strength from within, which is also the name of your practice. Tell everybody how they can find you, Fern.
So you can always call me. That's the easiest way, or text me, 860-919-2333. You can go onto my website, www.strengthfromwithinllc.com, or you can email me, strengthfromwithinllc@yahoo.com.
You're located in Connecticut, but you can work with anybody anywhere.
Oh my goodness. My goal is actually, believe it or not, to have a client in every state. I have clients in California, Texas,
Hmm.
Alabama, Florida, Massachusetts, Missouri, you name it. I'm almost there, and I'm so
Wow.
excited about that. I just got one from Iowa, and I was like, Iowa? I don't have Iowa. That's awesome. You
Most
know,
people want to visit every state. You want to help people in every state. That's amazing.
Absolutely. And
Wow.
I do everything FaceTime.
Sure.
And
Sure.
FaceTime is so easy. The best thing is I can do it morning, afternoon, nighttime. I can meet with you whenever you'd like. You could be in your pajamas, and all you got to do is hit the button and we can talk. You can hit the button and go to sleep. So you don't have to get in your car. You don't have to drive, sitting in
Right.
traffic, worry about this, that, and everything. So being able to do it through this kind of format, people love it. They do. And I
Yeah.
love it.
It shows, your passion shows, and your energy, and it's like talking to a friend.
Yeah,
Wonderful, Fern, having you on here today, and wish you all the best. Maybe someday we'll dig into the other things that you offer, but
absolutely.
learned a lot today, even from our talk.
Awesome. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We'll be
Take
right
care.
back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.